Good afternoon, everyone, and happy birthday to my daughter, Marissa, who's 24 years old today. And we have in the house my mentor, the double B himself, Blaine Bartlett, blainebartlett.com. Welcome to Office Hours, my dear friend.
Absolutely. Happy birthday to your your youngest.
Exactly. And I'm, as you know, having your children and grandchildren, it's an amazing tie-in of how old we are when we celebrate birthdays of our beautiful children. But we have a law professor in the house, and we're not going to be talking about Trump's indictment. For those of you that didn't just see that in the last 4 minutes, we're actually going to be talking about something that I want to talk about, which is Unwired, gaining control over addictive technologies. And Gaia Bernstein is the expert in this space. And Guy, I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a recovering lawyer, so take it easy on me as far as the legalese goes. But I've been struggling with my children to understand what the actual issues are with technology and the risks that they pose with addiction. And so if you could maybe give us a little bit of background on the applicability of the law to addiction as it relates to anything, let alone technology.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for having me. And the law, basically, when we have different things which are traditionally considered to be addictive, like certain drugs, and then they could be prohibited. And then you have other substances like alcohol, which is not prohibited, but is considered addictive. And there's some regulations, for example, for minors. And then you have certain things like behavior addictions, like gambling, which are also regulated. So now we're getting to the idea of technology addiction, which is right now not regulated, but there has been significant data coming out over the last few years showing the harms, particularly for children. I think the data is overwhelming. I think even for adults, there's lots of impact, but for children, we see a significant effect on their cognitive development, on their mental health, on the attention, and all of this is related to how much time they spend on screen.
And their posture, Blaine, by the way.
And their posture. Yes, that's all hunched over. Yeah. Yeah. This is a fascinating subject for me, Gaia. I mean, I've got 4 grandchildren, and all of them, from my perspective, have a little bit of an addictive connection to TikTok, to Instagram. Yeah. I mean, and at that age, that's just kind of par for the course. And I do know that, these tech organizations do design for endorphin creation and, all of the stuff that kind of goes on there. It's designed into that. My question here has to do with that is a current example of something that is designed to be addictive. Can we go back in history a little bit and look at some things that were also designed to be addictive? We may not have recognized it as such. And I'm not talking here about alcohol or heroin or any drugs, but social consumables.
Right. So I think the 2 big examples, which I actually look at in my book to make the comparison to today, and there's tobacco and food. So tobacco, it's hard to believe right now, but when the first studies came out in the 1950s, people didn't realize it was harmful at all. And with time, we got information, not just how harmful it is, but also how cigarette companies designed the cigarettes to addict people and knew about it the whole time. Yeah. And the same is with food, with junk food. Basically, the way food is designed, the way sugar is added, salt is added, is also designed to make sure people consume as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. And how much of it, and I'm going to bring up, hold on 1 second. I just realized my microphone fell off. Can you guys hear me okay? Holy moly. I'm a professional. This is only my 500th episode. But, I'm thinking of enforceability and the responsibility of parents to their children and accessibility. And I'm going to bring up a taboo subject, but for me, there runs parallels with porn. That we don't want 7-year-olds watching pornography. We never have, even before technology. They weren't letting them into burlesque shows and other things historically way back when. But there became, this parental access control issue when porn became a technology, or content of that type became a technology. Where do we parallel the enforcement? I think it's well known that technology is addictive and that companies are taking advantage of that addiction by producing it in a certain way. But how do we control the access to these technologies? Because it seems as if it will always render the parent as the enforcer.
So I think that's exactly the problem. I don't think the parents should be in the middle of this because it doesn't work. I mean, maybe with small kids, it's different. But once you get to middle school, the kids are going to be online no matter what. That's their social life. And if the parents try to enforce technology monitoring, the kids are much smarter. They'll always find a way to get around it. And the problem is that parents right now are basically blaming themselves because they feel like they've tried so hard, they can't succeed. They blame themselves, they blame the kids. There's been so much about self-help, finding ways to not have phones at the table, not have phones at bedtime. Not that these things are bad. The problem is that it doesn't work when something is so addictive. So I don't think I think there are other things parents can do. Parents can do things collectively, influencing schools, how much technology there is in schools, which is right now, the more technology, the better. But I think parents should switch from fighting with kids at home to acting in the public sphere.
So acting in the public sphere, one of the things that you highlight in your book is there are some you identify some very specific legal actions that can be taken, not necessarily in the form of banning something, but there are some things that can be done that can limit the addictive or the access to or the formulation of addictive structures. Can you talk about a couple of those just from a design standpoint?
Yeah, so I definitely don't think you should target users. I mean, people will be very unhappy if they walk into a cinema and people will take their phones away. So I think that what should be targeted is the middleman, the technology companies, and by exerting pressure on them to change their designs. And there's not going to be one way in which this is done. I mean, it's not going to be one magic Supreme Court case that's going to change all of this. It's going to be many things, and I can give examples. Think, for example, if we had ratings for addictiveness. So many parents got the Minecraft game as an educational game. Can you imagine if they could see before they downloaded it how addictive it is? It was actually named the most addictive game in all times. And maybe they would have not downloaded it. Now, this is important because if they wouldn't download it, game manufacturers may change the features because they want parents to buy the games for the children. So that's one thing, sort of raising awareness. And I've been quite a few attempts by legislators to legislate laws to protect children, and also some of them look at all of us trying to prohibit some of these design features, which are nothing. They're just for us to spend more time online, because the whole business model is based on that, basically, on us spending as much time online as possible so they can collect more data on us, and then they can target advertising at us. We have to spend more time because the products are sold for free. So if we exert pressure by prohibiting some of these design mechanisms and eventually changing this business model through antitrust measures, which is a much longer route, these are some examples of what could be done.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that as a parent and as a recovering lawyer that is always challenging, and I've been involved in technology since 1992, is that legislation and regulation take a long time, and becomes completely inapplicable to the technologies that exist by the time the regulation and the legislation comes out. And it reminds me of early days consulting in technology. We worked with defense organizations, and they were building battleships, and they take 17 years to build a carrier, and they wanted advice on what technology should we budget for in a vehicle that was going to be produced 17 years from now. And I hate to say it, but it seems like such a daunting task to create regulation or legislation with technology, because as that goes through the process, the game makers, for example, or online content providers will be well aware of what's being proposed, and they will beat it to market with some other thing that is not covered within the regulation or the legislation. And so I'm looking at, where and what can we do, with gun control, for example. It's proven in Australia, we could take away assault guns, and they have 100 murders out of 28 million people in Australia because they took away the guns. You're saying we can't take away devices. We can't really have regulations and legislation because it moves too slow. We can't use the parents because we have to take them out of the middle. I think the majority of the parents agree with you, but it's one of these situations that, as a pragmatic lawyer or somewhat of a lawyer, what realistically do you think we can do to make a difference?
So I agree that if legislation is very narrow, that would not work. If we just, for example, target specific features like the infinite scroll, which basically there's never a stopping sign when we go on Twitter, we go on Instagram, we just keep going and going, they'll find something else. As long as the business model remains this business model based on time, they'll find something else. There are ways to craft legislation more broadly, basically prohibiting any designs that's goal is to have us engage for longer. But I don't think it's just legislation. I think it will be pressure. For example, there are class actions now of parents who are suing social media and suing games because they're addicting the kids. So it will never be just one thing. There's no magic pill. But basically with time, with different regulations, with class actions, with antitrust, with Federal Trade Commission enforcement of what they call dark patterns, I think we will see a change taking place. But I think that it will take time. And that's why I believe people have to do something themselves.
Well, I hope it's more like cigarettes, that the regulations and legislation never really stopped underage smoking. But what happened was it raised the awareness to what smoking does. And inherently, at least in the United States, I find it a great blessing that the majority of the people know and are able, to raise a different consciousness that smoking is bad. And that's why we don't do it. And your kids aren't doing it. And they may find other things with the vapes and the weed or whatever it is. But, as far as tobacco smoking goes, it's completely diminished in its usage here in America compared to when I was 10 years old.
Yeah. Right. And when you were 10 years old, I'm sure you could not enter a store and you could enter a store and get cigarettes. And now, if you were 10, you wouldn't be able to do that. So that's a big difference. If you start much later.
But I think the bigger point is that the kids that are 10 have a different perspective of smoking, which is even greater than not being able to go get them. Because kids will find ways to get shit, whether it's legal or not. And so I think when there's an overwhelming, because of the awareness and all of these different factors, they grow up, and it may just be, because kids like me sat in a station wagon when their dad was smoking 3 packs of cigarettes with the windows up, and it's like, I'm not smoking, right? Like, this disgusts me, and the kids kind of learn from there. But Jade, you are on the right path, and I think I'm sorry, Jade's waiting for us. I'm Gaia Bernstein, thank you. Gaia, you're on the right path, and I think everyone should read the book because we need to raise awareness. Because I think the bigger issue right now is you know, in the 50s, they didn't really know. They had presumption that cigarettes were bad for you because you were coughing and stuff, but they had no idea how addictive and dangerous cigarettes were in the 50s. And I think we are sitting in the same situation with the addictive technologies. We're just getting a little glimpse today of what and how it really is addictive. And we need more people like you and others surrounding. So as a first step, I want to encourage everyone, go get the book Unwired. The first step is raising your own awareness to what these games actually and technology actually do to make them addictive, so we can start creating change in a variety of different ways.
Good. Gaia, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
You bet.
I wish I had you as a law professor, much more interesting than my professors.
You know,
that's directed at you, Professor Force, who told me in my first year of law school, stand up for recitation, and then I screwed it up. He said, Mr. Meltzer, don't jump off the cliff. I'll push you. That was the beginning. That was the beginning of my law degree.
Your auspicious loss.
Yeah. Now they probably call that bullying, but anyway, it happened, and I'm not doing anything about it today. Anyway, Jade Simmons, I gave a precursor to her coming on. Her name was so beautiful, I just skipped down to it.
Yeah.
CEO of Jade Media Global, and you know, onward and upward. You know, this is a mind-blowing book that she has called Purpose, the Remix, and it's a mind-blowing re-understanding of purpose and how it works. I'm going to start with Jade, one of my favorite quotes, and see what your thoughts are about it. I love the quote that your purpose is your thoughts about your purpose. And and I'd love to get your insight on what that means to you, and if it's at all applicable to the Purpose Remix.
It is. I like it. I can roll with that, because
right on.
What I really believe is that your purpose is not the thing you do. It's the thing that happens in others when you do what you do. And when you start thinking, I know, right? That's a mic drop.
I love that.
When you start thinking on that, meditating on that, I know you're after making 1 billion people happy. I'm after helping 1 billion people uncover that level of purpose, because the happy is on repeat. The reward is on repeat. And I like to say, I like and I care about people too much now to be stopped by them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that.
Oh, we're starting. Yeah. And remember, it's over 1 billion. Don't limit yourself.
Oh, there we go. I love it. I love
it. Over 1 billion. You're not limiting yourself. I can tell already.
Number.
Let's do it. It's great. At least we got at least 2 billion of the planet covered between happy and purpose. So
yeah.
So, you know, I love the way that you framed that. It's what happens in other people. And the idea here, you know, I've done work with purpose for 40 years, you know, in my consulting business and my coaching work. And I've consistently had to disabuse people of the idea, I'm going to go find my purpose. Well, no, there's no finding involved. Just pay attention and you will know what it is.
You guys read the book.
Here.
You guys read the book. Yeah, but that's it.
That framing is so important.
Yeah, it's an uncovering. You know, if I honestly believe that people live and die without ever discovering it, because they've been looking for it in roles, titles, jobs. You know, I meet moms who think my purpose is to parent. I say, no, your purpose is what happens in your kids because of how you uniquely parent them, right? And so, you know, if we lose our job, we shouldn't feel purposeless. Purpose, I always say, gets to ride itself out in multiple purpose vehicles. So all the people suffering from the condition I like to call /artist, pianist, /CEO, /speaker, /author, I don't have to explain that to anyone. Because if I know that my purpose is to activate, usually it's boldness and bigness in people. That comes with me as a minister. It comes with me as an author. It gets to go with me wherever I go. So if you can attach your purpose to some level of freedom for other people as well, man, again, the happy and the energy is on repeat.
And how important is it, Jade? You know, I look, and when I started my speaking career, for example, you know, I wanted people to listen to me. And my mentor over there, he said, Dave, no, you don't. I said, what do you mean? I want people to listen to me. I want them to hear me. And I remember him telling me, first of all, it's not what you say, it's what they hear. And two, he said, what you really want is to know what people are listening for. And that became a transformational experience of having them feel a certain way. And Michelangelo, who we all know, she said, they're not going to remember what you say. They remember how they feel. And all of the things that you teach in this idea of purpose and the remix of purpose and the thoughts about purpose and making someone feel and experience something, to me brings up an interesting nuance of where we all come from, which is there's so many different variables of how we can make people feel. We just had the online lady, the law professor, but you know, I love to start in person because you can't go backwards. Meaning, if I send a video out, I can't make that video be in person anymore. But if I start in person with a in live experience, I can make it go to every platform after I do it live.
That's good. Repurpose purpose.
Exactly. And that's what I was getting for. How important is it that we understand that frequency of live and the repurposing of purpose?
Wow. You know, the subtitle, A Mind-Blowing Reunderstanding, that's not marketing. That is proof of what we saw happening. So I would utter that one little 22-word statement. Your purpose is not the thing you do. It's the thing that happens in others when you do what you do. And there'd be this, and then the next day, no lie, we'd get emails and DMs. I quit my job. I started a new business. I'm going in the ministry. And we were like, wait a minute. Whoa, hold on. I need to let me unpack that for you. But what we found was that there was this freedom happening where people were, first of all, in a place sometimes they didn't want to be. I'm brought in by major corporations, much like you are. And a lot of times they don't even want to be there, or they're there, but they feel like, I know this is technically my dream job, but there's got to be more. And that reattaching of who they are, how they are, and what they can do to having an effect on those around them, whether or not they have a title of manager or director or leader, seeing that, oh my gosh, I have an outbreak effect just because of who I am. You said it. Look, we're having an effect whether or not we're taking note of it, for better or for worse. Somebody's feeling something coming off of us. So what a blessing to be able to take time to uncover what that effect is and then decide on purpose. Now I'm going to offer this every chance I get. And I'll tell you, as someone with the background of a concert pianist walking into these Fortune 100 rooms, knowing they're wondering what the heck has the pianist got to say to me. That's what I mean by I don't care what they think. Most 98% of them have never heard of me by the time I get there. But I always say, I just have to make sure they can't forget what they felt by the time I leave, you know?
I got another quote for you, right? Well, I got another quote for you. What you think about me is none of my business.
All the time. Listen, in my own prayers, when I say, hey, I'm worried about this thing, or what are they going to think? I feel like God always says, that's none of your business. You're wasting so much time and energy on these things that I've already either taken care of or you don't have to worry about. And a lot of the people that I coach, you know, it's amazing how much time we have to spend detaching them from preconceived notions, or I always say past failures or things that have happened that they've now projected into their future. You talk about killing happiness. So many people are stagnant because they're still reeling from what had happened and stressing about what could happen and wasting the now in the meantime. And I feel like purpose is one of those things that powers you to move in the now.
Oh, you know, the idea that, one way of defining authenticity, and this is where purpose actually kind of crops up very profoundly. One way to define it is it's what I'm left with when I've stopped trying to manage your perception of me. And then I just show up. And then if I'm noticing, one of the things that I, will coach my leaders that I'm working with on is how, pay attention to how people feel about themselves when they're in your presence.
That's it.
That's where your access point is to authenticity.
That's that outbreak effect. One of the exercises I take people through is asking what some of them feel like are hard questions, especially if you start with the people closest to you, it's a little easier. Why do you, I always tell women, ask other women why they always come tell you all their business. And there's usually a reason they come to you, an answer they're expecting. Some of my best friends know when not to come to me, which is when they don't want to be told, get over yourself and here's what you need to do. right?
Uh-huh.
So they don't call me when that's the case. But when they want to really hear the truth, and they're usually tired of getting in their own way, I get the call. And so what I can collect from that track record is that people are depending on me to give a hard truth, to maybe say a hard thing in a way that's going to make them believe that a lot more than they ever thought was possible. And now you have that purpose gives you permission in advance to always behave a certain way. And I always say it makes me feel like I'm never in the in the wrong place at the wrong time.
And Jay, you're so inspiring and inspired. I really have to talk about a shift in a paradigm that occurred in my life, because I was someone who did attach my emotions to an outcome and search for a purpose and passion and profitability, which are all tied together in my mind some way. But obviously you're on a ministry, I'm in a ministry of understanding the shift in the paradigm of purpose, that I'm not in search of purpose, I apply my purpose. And in order to do so, I have to believe in something bigger than me that loves me more than my mom. And whatever religion, philosophy, spirituality, theories you believe in, I think it's a foundational, better choice in life to believe that. And I know that you do. I can tell by your philosophy, theories, and spirituality. I don't know your religion, nor do I care. It doesn't make a difference to me. More importantly, how important is it that there is purpose drawn from and applied from an omniscient, all-powerful, all-knowing, omnipresent, unified system of thought, however you define it?
I do believe it's crucial. One of the things that it does initially, again, is this freedom concept. It frees you from yourself, from thinking that you're in charge of everything. And, the last thing we're in control of is other people. But even in the book, I dedicate that whole last chapter to saying, even if you don't believe like I do, let's say you believe strictly in science, let's say Big Bang Theory. Well, even everything that came into existence somehow still had a purpose, right? The hummingbird knows exactly which flowers to pollinate. So how far of a stretch is it to believe then that we as unique individuals might have a unique individual purpose, that we might be here for a reason? So however you come to it, the idea that what we do is not just for ourselves. And I think a lot of times, I don't know, even the religion of happiness or the religion of self-help, sometimes people think that the only thing we're chasing is this idea of personal happiness. For me, and for most of the people that I've worked with success, that happiness, purpose refuels you. Passion can burn out. I always say passion's an exhaustible resource. It's just given to us to help power us in purpose. But purpose is one of those things where I can go on a stage, not wanting to be on that stage today, maybe being tired, maybe having had, a death in the family. And the moment I step on that stage, there's this energy that says the people in these seats, they don't know what you're going through. They just know they need something you have. And purpose allows me to give that. So believing that I'm here for a reason that's bigger than myself, for me personally, has been huge. And I've watched it affect many lives, even of those who don't believe exactly like I do. But this understanding that, man, my actions matter. And there's an energy in me that can be transferred, and it can matter big time. That's huge for a lot of people.
It is. It's all energy. That's beautiful. And music is the perfect medium for that.
Oh man, I'll tell you what. This little beast here has gotten me into some unexpected rooms. My original dream was simply to play Rachmaninoff, Beethoven, Chopin, wash, rinse, repeat. And long story very short, I started something that was rare back in the day, which was speaking to my audiences. Now you see a lot of classical artists do it, but I was one of the first, by the way. And when I did it, it was such a big deal because people weren't used to the artist breaking, that wall.
Breaking that wall. Yeah.
Right. So it was huge. And that led to a speaking career. But my piano now comes with me, not this one. A much bigger one comes with me wherever I go. And so if I'm talking about leadership in terms of reinvention or improvisation, I can pull people up to the piano who've never played, and we create music together. So talk about change mastery, being put on the spot, rising to the occasion, creativity. So this piano has gotten me into a lot of rooms to make some pretty unexpected impact.
Well, I'll say,
I'm just a real quick non sequitur, just out of curiosity. Are you familiar with a fellow by the name of Freddie Ravel?
I've heard that name before.
Okay, we got to make an introduction here. Freddie's an old dear friend. He was a keyboardist for Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Of course.
Freddie's an amazing guy, and you two are two peas in a pod.
Would we hit it off?
And I just have to say, the way that you make me feel, it reminded me, we're getting into the piano talk, Blaine. I don't know if you remember this. We were on the World's Greatest Motivator tour, which was the WGN show as well. But we got to speak at Carnegie Hall. Yeah. And the people that put it on, my grandfather was a jazz pianist for Benny Goodman, big band pianist. And for his 88th birthday, I got him to play in the Super Bowl. They had in San Diego 88 pianos, and he was 88 years old, and he played the piano. But as to honor him, the people that put on the Carnegie event allowed me to, never played the piano, but allowed me to sit at the piano and pray for my grandfather. Wow. And I have that content that he always dreamed. Excuse me, I'm crying already. He dreamed of playing at Carnegie Hall. So in honor of him, I got to sit at the piano at Carnegie Hall. I did get to speak there, but I sat at the piano for him.
It was one of the best renditions of Chopsticks I've ever heard.
Exactly. Certainly for me it was, and you made me feel purposeful. So you have reached your objective with us too. Please, we have many other shows. We want to have you on. Please. The world needs more of you, Jade. That's for sure. Check her out, jadesimmons.com. Jade, come back and join us anytime.
I look forward to it. Thank you for having me.
You bet.
Amazing. Bye-bye. All right. We got another Jay coming on. Judy Wilkins Smith is here. Yeah. And geez, look at that smile. We're going all over the place today with wisdom, my friend. I think Judy Wilkins Smith is a constellations expert, obviously speaker, coach as well, and author. But decoding our emotional blueprint, a guide through all of this confusion is what I would say. And she's giving us some great enlightenment and direction of our emotional inheritance. I talk about a genetic and energetic inheritance that we all have. And the better that we see the clues and patterns, it allows us to make better choices as well, and gives us the power to have that purpose and put that purpose into other people. So I'm so excited, Judy, to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, David. Hi, Blaine. It's lovely to be with you.
Pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, very good. And this is so up my alley. And I know Blaine's, if we had a tequila, we could sit around for hours and talking about this. But I want to talk about decoding this emotion, this blueprint that we've been given, the genetic and energetic inheritance. What are some of the clues that you have found that allow us to decode our own emotional blueprint?
Yeah, so one of the clues is your language. If your language is sort of inflated, or if you have a reaction to something and everybody's going, what? The dog walked out the door and you're freaking, what? This is what you want to look at. Or you're really dogmatic about something. It's this way or no way. When you've got those kinds of things going on, generally it means you're taking care of some piece of emotion that's been passed down through generations. And it's actually saying to you, you know what? I've kind of outlived my usefulness. Would you like to turn me into something else? But so that's what you sit with, is the pattern that's trying to stop and the other one that's trying to emerge.
Yeah, the notion of constellation work. I mean, Virginia Satir, whom I'm assuming that you know a fair amount about.
Yep.
I've done some constellation work with, I won't go back into the whole history of it, but it's a fascinating process by which, particularly when you're staging people around in a room and you're actually living a living system. You're duplicating a living system. How do you actually track the blueprint back to a source where you can actually unbundle it? Okay, so a couple of things. Number one, when you put people around the room, what they're doing is they're keying into that collective conscious, right? We call it the knowing field in this work. And so what will happen is you'll start to see them either move or talk.
And what I do is I track the language. I'm very particular about the words that you use. Things like somebody who walks in and says, I'm all on fire. I'm a fire this and a fire that. And I'm like, okay, so where is the original fire? Let's have a look. And you'll see that we're talking about our systems all day long. We're tattling on ourselves all the time. So what I do is I look to see where that originated. Now, some people don't have that history. So what you want to do then is timeline your own history. And you'll begin to see, we don't pay attention to it, but you'll begin to see that you have patterns. You do things a certain way. You have money DNA or relationship DNA that keeps repeating. And the reason it's doing that is it's saying to you again, you know what, I've kind of outgrown this box. Do you want to do something really good with me? And actually, it's pointing you in the direction of your life's purpose. So if you come from a family where everybody is always miserable, but you're the life of the party and you don't fit in, actually, you really do fit in, but you're expanding the system. And so people who think they are imposters are often not. They're pioneers. And the black sheep is often not. It's simply showing you direction. Constellations is fascinating because what it does is it takes the inner picture, and the minute that you dimensionalize it or place it out where you can see it, you're literally making the unconscious conscious and the invisible visible. Now you can see the pattern in front of you. And so because that's happening, instead of doing it here, you're connecting head, heart, and gut, and you've got this multi-sensory experience going on, which means you're going to have those aha shifts all the time.
And Judy, one of the things that has worked, as you know, it's even more difficult to understand past lives, and I believe in 100 million lifetimes. So that type of inheritance of patterns or coding. I have found that identifying fear and ego-based consciousness directed towards either fear of the past or fear of the future has allowed me to make those transformational changes in a much more accelerated way, where I see, for example, one that I found early on in my journey was the need to be offended. And I started to realize everyone around me, even people that weren't related, just energetically around me, had a need to be offended, and how much time, energy, and emotion was wasted because everybody had a need to be offended. And it's a horrible need, because all you have to do is walk outside with a need to be offended, and you're going to be offended.
But what you bring there is exactly right, because we don't understand that your focus is going to bring you the result, right? It's exactly the same deal with money. People don't understand that money is not a commodity. It's a relationship. And your relationship with that, or your relationship with your need to be offended, is precisely what you're going to be open to. You will notice every little piece that you can that wants to be offended. And what you're doing is you're also then being loyal to the system. My dad was, my grandfather was, my great-grandfather was. Yep, me too. Well, you know what it's saying to you is, and how many more generations are you going to sentence to the same? Or are you, David, going to look at that, as you said, and go, oh, I have a need to be offended. Well, that's interesting. I wonder what would happen if I had a need to be appreciated. And you begin to reframe it, because what it's asking you is, okay, do we have to do this again and again and again? Or are you the change agent? If you are, step up.
Yeah, the idea, I mean, I'm fascinated by your use of language and your appreciation of the linguistic power of language. One of the things that I realized pretty early on in the very basic work I did with system structures was by being, and it has to do with subject-object distinctions. When I can put it outside of me, the identity is severed. It's not me any longer. It's just a system that I can observe. And if I can observe it, and I'm struck here by disentangling multi-generational patterns. If I can observe it, as opposed to being in it, I can actually do something with it. that is generative and probably fairly easy to access, would be my guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what you've just spoken about is so important. We always think it's all about me. And it is all about me, but it's not all about me. And it is all about me. So 90% of the time, we're living somebody else's ancient history. We're very seldom present, changing it and creating a new future. But when we do, we change the DNA going backwards and forwards. Now, suddenly, dad isn't a villain anymore. Mom isn't. I had a fascinating person who came in who was so upset because her mother was a prostitute. Now, I mean, I hear all sorts of things all day long. And I said, okay, do we mean literally or figuratively? No, literally. And she couldn't hold her head up because of mom being this prostitute. So we go back a little bit in the story, and I say to her, so tell me about mom. Well, when she was 3, her mother died. And she went to her sisters and she said, I'm so hungry. And they said, if you lift your skirts, a man will always feed you. And I said to her, okay, so you're busy feeling embarrassed and ashamed because your mother was a prostitute. Have you ever thanked her for having had the courage to be alive and to do what she needed to do? And she went, her? And I said, so you look at your mom as a villain. Is she a villain? Or is this a hero that you're choosing to see in a very different way? Her mother didn't survive. She could have not survived. She did. And she walked out going, oh my goodness, my mother's a hero. It's, what are we doing with what we're getting?
Yeah.
And the other piece is every time there's a train smash, be aware that the train smash is not a train smash. It's a portal to possibility. It's asking you to look and shift and create something incredible. Universe never, ever gives you a dead set train smash. It gives you a crack open the egg.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to words as well in this decoding because we're coded by words. And, you know, when I did this type of work for myself, I looked up to my grandmother, who's extremely intelligent academically and, you know, taught at Ohio State at 17 years old. And my family has a pattern of academic egotistical achievement in you know, I call them school snobs in effect. But when I was hyperactive as a young boy, very active still today, but I would tell my grandmother, who was helping my mother out because we had 6 kids and a single mom, grandmother,
Wow.
I'm bored. And her answer every time was, only stupid people get bored. Smart people,
I love your grandmother.
smart people think of things to do. And it took me years to realize that I was creating all types of interference in my life because I would surround myself with people I knew I was supposedly smarter than to make me feel good. And so I would limit myself by not hiring people that were more qualified than I was for certain things and a variety of insecurities. Does it actually have, or was it, you know, just word mumbo jumbo that, you know, repetitively hearing this, only stupid people get bored, smart people have things to do, created a pattern in my life that I had to change?
Absolutely. And she was also pointing out to you, you have a choice. Stay dumb and dumb down, or get smart and think up. And she was actually giving you those 2 pieces. Yay, grandma. I love grandma. She was amazing. She was actually, what she was also doing was future creating. Hey, be smart, think up. Only stupid people stay, or only dumb people stay, whatever it was that she said. She was absolutely pointing you in the direction of don't be dumb, be smart. And at some point, you figured out, well, if I keep doing this with people, I'm going to stay here. But if I want to climb, I better find somebody smarter than me, or where do I go next? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
This is why I have my show.
I love your show. And this is exactly it is. I keep saying to people, stop thinking you have to know it all. You don't. In fact, it's really scary when you do, because now you've run out of options and you've done exactly what your grandma said. Be willing to not know anything and learn everything. It's so much more fun. And the other piece is she was pointing you in the direction of not only your purpose, but your adventure. Life is an adventure, when we stop being so sorry for ourselves, when we stop being the victim, because all that the victim does is it kind of pulls in all the generations and says, let's sit in the stew. It does nothing for anybody. But when you grab a hold of it and realize you have an adventure and a purpose, life gets really interesting.
Yes, it does. It does.
Well, you have certainly lived by my statement of be more interested than interesting. And Judy Wilkins-Smith, please come back. We have so many other shows. There's so much more we can talk about. But in the interim, before we have Judy back, let's make sure we read her book, Decoding Your Emotional Blueprint. It is a powerful guide to transformation through disentangling our multi-generational and multi-lived patterns that can hold us back from our potential or interfere with our potential. We need more of Judy Wilkins-Smith. Thank you so much. I learned so much in such a short amount of time. Just make one promise. Please come back and visit.
Promise. Can't wait to be with you both. Go
Great.
have a big adventure. It was lovely being with you.
Lovely being with you, truly.
Thank you. All right, Blaine, wow. All I gotta say is wow.
Yeah.
It's it's days like today that I think we've done 500 episodes, and not counting the TV shows with 500 more interviews there. And wow, I can't believe that we attract this type of vision into our world. What's your takeaway for today?
Well, there's a couple of things that are just kind of bubbling around right now. One is, just yesterday I was asked by somebody, why do you do your podcast? And I went, are you serious? The reason I do my podcast is because I get to meet fascinating people, and I get to go into areas I've never explored before, and it keeps me alive. She said, do you monetize it? I said, that's the furthest thing from my mind. I just do this thing because it's interesting. It's interesting. And if it's interesting for me, hopefully it'll be interesting for somebody else. Now, where does that lead? It leads to the takeaway today. When you step out of your front door, you can turn left, you can turn right, you can go straight ahead. You can actually go back into the house again, right? You got a number of different directional choices here. And what that points to is where I'm at today has absolutely nothing to do with where I end up tomorrow. It's literally a function of a choice I make in the moment to move in a direction. Now, each of our three guests today came at that from a different perspective. And there are patterns that run me. I don't have to be run by them. So, I can just disabuse myself. I've got to notice them so I can do something with it. So the takeaways here have to do with both awareness, but also the use of imagination. Awareness to notice my purpose in the way that we were talking about it at the very top of the show. And then the willingness just to kind of use my imagination. How would I play with this? How would this play out if I went that direction? And then just kind of see where that runs. I love Judy's last comment. Life is an adventure. I have a ball doing this show with you. I have a ball every time I'm around you. That's another story entirely. But and it oftentimes doesn't include tequila. But that's the takeaway. That's the takeaway is it's alive. Life is about being alive, and it's about showing up in a way that isn't dictated by my past or even my present. I get to make a choice. That's where aliveness lives. I get to make a choice.
Yeah. Mine, of course, is always relative, and most with you. And it's interesting because today is, my oldest daughter's birthday, and I've been in a contemplative state today of understanding, my legacy of, putting purpose into the people that are most relative to me. And obviously my oldest daughter is very relative to me, but every single person today, as I took the time to be here with you and including you, it reminds me that most people don't. Most people live their life like tubes.
Yeah.
Food in, food out. And yet there's all these resources to not live your life like a tube. You in Gaia, you look and say, because in the lawyer in me, and when I'm dealing with a law professor, I'm like, well, why do this? why would we even bother with the addictive technology issues when, you know, it is a big mountain and it takes so much time. It's going to take past your lifetime, as it has with cigarettes in America. Many generations have died before we figured out cigarettes. You know, we create a culture that cigarettes are bad, not restrictions, regulations, legislation, just culture says it's bad. And that's because people like Gaia don't live as tubes.
Yep.
Right. They don't live as tubes. And, you know, obviously with Judy and Jade, they're very obvious about that same type of mindset. And, you know, I just take a takeaway of I'm not going to live my life like a tube, and I'm not going to allow others around me to do the same. I'm going to help other people enjoy the consistent, everyday, persistent, without quit pursuit of their potential, their adventure, and, you know, with faith as well. So thank you, Blaine Bartlett, for always enlightening me, helping me, and proving my grandmother right as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Big hugs, birthday girl.
Yeah,
awesome.
I know. Awesome. I'll see you soon. Blaine Bartlett, BlaineBartlett.com. He is a master, my mentor, and you can see why. Don't live your life like a tube. And if you are, go seek Blaine Bartlett, BlaineBartlett.com. I'm David Meltzer. Be happy. David@dmeltzer.com. If you'd like my book, Guides, Exercises. We have training tomorrow. I've been doing it over 23 years. We will be 7 a.m. One of the last times we're doing training at 7 a.m. We're going to move it up to 6 a.m. coming up soon, April 14th. But 7 a.m. tomorrow Pacific time. That's 10 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. The week after, we'll be at the Masters doing the training. But we are here to empower others to be happy. If you are not signed up, over 80,000 people are registered for training. Please join us. Just email me, David@dmeltzer.com. It's been on the ticker almost all day for you as well. I want to thank Raluca. I want to thank Gigi, who take their time to produce the show. And what a show it certainly has become, thanks to those people. I want to appreciate them as well. Remember, most importantly, as you enjoy your evening, be more interested than interesting. Be kind to your future self. Do good deeds. We'll see you later.